Good day. I'm here to talk about financial inclusion. And in this talk, I will touch about the following points. First, what is it to be unbanked today? What does it mean? And why is it important that we focus on this issue? Secondly, I'll touch about some of the reasons why they are unbanked and what can we do about that. Then I will touch upon what we call a digital financial service platform, which is a way to include, to connect these people to the financial system. And finally, we'll talk a little bit about what can you do, can we all do to progress financial inclusion in the world. Let's talk a little bit about people who are so-called unbanked. What does it mean really, if you think about it, to have on average less than $2 of earnings per day? Less than $1,000 in savings at any point in time. What does that mean? It means a very difficult life, and it is the life of about 2.5 billion people on the planet today. These people are in countries such as Nigeria, India, Pakistan. I will tell a little bit more about the work that Gates Foundation is doing in these and other countries. But the issue of financial inclusion actually is also quite important in so-called developed economies, in the sense that even countries like the United States and in Europe, there is a lot of financially excluded people for many reasons. In fact, depending on the regions, but it may go into double-digit percentages. So it's important overall for the planet. For the Gates Foundation and my job at the Financial Services for the Poor strategy, we tend to focus on 8 countries: Nigeria, Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya in Africa, and India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Indonesia. These are our countries of focus where we choose to indeed be very active in order to make a difference. But we always keep in mind that what we do in these countries is also an example of what should be done in other countries. So that is the situation, the dire situation. 2.5 billion people are excluded from any financial system, deal with cash. It is important for us to do something about that for 2 reasons. One is that simply dealing with cash, there are numerous studies, is very difficult, very unsecure, and actually makes people dwell deeper into poverty rather than the opposite. So that is one reason. The second reason is that in the endeavor of helping the countries and the poor, there is a lot of health workers, NGOs on the ground that are helping. These people need to get paid. And today, the systems for paying are very cumbersome and cash-based, very insecure. So these are 2 reasons why it's important for us to focus on that. Let us then talk a little bit about why is the situation like this today? Why are there so many people excluded from the financial system? Well, the reasons are multiple, and I will try to touch upon some of the key reasons for this. The first reason has to do simply with reach. The people we are talking about tend to live outside of the big cities, in rural regions, and especially in the countries I mentioned, there are no bank branches, there are no ATMs in these regions. So it is sometimes for a person in these regions to get to a bank, it may take actually travel and cost to actually get to the nearest financial point. So that is one reason why people are excluded. The second reason has to do with regulation and the so-called KYC rules. Of course, they depend on the country, and the details can vary, but usually the rules to obtain a bank account are very stringent in terms of identity proof and residency proof. And both of these conditions are sometimes very difficult to meet for the people we're talking about. They may not have an identity that is suitable for opening a bank account. They may not have a resident. So that is the second big reason why for exclusion. The third reason has to do with, let me call this the incumbent financial system that has been developed over the years to cater for a certain set of transactions and a certain population, and that is simply not adapted cost-wise to serve the poor people whose transaction rates and type are actually not necessarily suitable for the incumbent financial system. So if that is the situation, what can we do about it? Well, the one thing that is different, interesting in the case of the population we are looking at today is that there is one element that they have, which are typically mobile phone technology. The mobile phones are quite widespread in terms of use and availability. Obviously, the mobile phones that are being used are very basic, what we would call today feature phones, so not the smartphones that are the most advanced. But nevertheless, these phones are widely available to the people, and so this technology provides a potential solution for one of the problems I mentioned, which is the access, how to reach this population. So mobile phones and the concept of digital financial systems emerges from that. So what do I mean by digital financial systems? So let's think a little bit about a metaphor. So we know some 20 years, 15 years ago, we have digitized pictures, photos. So we went from analog to JPEG. We also have digitized books, going from analog to digital books. We have digitized movies with the MPEG-4 technologies, etc. So today, money is still something that needs to be digitized. And mobile phones, and what I mean by digitized is really the capacity to be able to send money in the same way that you would send an email or a JPEG. So that's an interesting concept, and it is interesting from many perspectives. So let's think a little bit about what a digital financial system may look like that is based on mobile technology. Well, let me try to capture it in one sentence. In a digital financial system, transactions should be universal, instantaneous, and almost free. These are very important characteristics for the population we are looking at. So that is one important point. The second important point, of course, is that it's inclusive. But what I mean by inclusive is really reaching the 100% of the population. And to do that, it is obvious that some collaboration will be needed between players and providers. So some form of interoperability will be needed to reach the entirety of the population. So that is the second important point. The third important point as well is that I'm not talking here about charity. A digital financial system really is something where profit can be made in a different way, in a very different business model than traditional financial system, but nevertheless, in the end, it should be self-sustainable. It should be able to serve the needs of the population while providing business opportunities for players, for commercial players to be crowdsourced in. So that's another important characteristic. And then finally, I think also it needs to be secure and reliable. It is not because we are talking about poor people and small transactions that security and reliability should be relaxed. At the contrary, security and reliability are probably even more important than perhaps in a traditional system. So these are some of the characteristics. Finally, I want to insist on one last point regarding the characteristics, which is accessibility. So I mentioned one of the key issues is the KYC requirements. And in fact, the tendency today, as we see it, is that regulation is increasing and making it even more difficult to get access to a financial system. So we need to think carefully about how to design KYC rules that are suitable and inclusive. That is perhaps the most difficult in this. How do we establish identity, and how do we establish some form of gradual KYC requirements where people can be included for small transactions and small volumes. That is one of the key issues that needs to be carefully looked at. And we'll come back as to who may be instrumental in this. So enough talk. Perhaps it's good that after laying out in abstract some of the key characteristics, why don't we have a look at how it may be in the future. So let's have a look at this short video showing a world with a digital financial system. So, impressive, no? Now, is this science fiction? No, of course. Some countries are already well on the way to a situation like this. Of course, there is the M-Pesa system in Kenya, which is quite pervasive and that has some of the characteristics that I mentioned. There is another system which the Gates Foundation is also helping. It's called bKash in Bangladesh. It's a system that started in some 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and just went over 13 million users of mobile money. And the key use case there is person-to-person payments over mobile technology. It's great. It shows that it's possible, that reaching the key characteristics I mentioned of affordability, security, reliability, relaxed KYC is possible. So it is encouraging. We have ways to go in many other countries, even we have to progress in Kenya and Bangladesh, but it is there. Also, I don't know if you have noticed in the video some interesting new capabilities that are brought forward by the existence of a digital financial system. There was a very interesting insurance scenario for insuring crops against bad weather. That is something that is made possible also. So we see a lot of possible applications on top of a digital financial system and a lot of innovation there. So it is very encouraging, and I'm very optimistic. So now I have mentioned that building a digital financial system is a cooperative effort. Yes, there will be competition, but building the key rails will be mostly about cooperation. I call it the all hands on deck strategy. We need you all. We need the central banks, the governments, we need the banks, we need the commercial players, the telcos. All are needed to contribute to the creation of this. Let me touch a little bit about each one of these in this call to action. Governance, it's very important to have financial inclusion as a key agenda element, a key agenda of the government. This is the case in many of the countries I mentioned, and I believe it should be the case in many more countries on the planet. Central banks, I see them really as taking a leadership role on some difficult issues, such as I mentioned, the KYC, and how to make KYC something that is inclusive. Innovation and creativity will be required there. Another important role also for the central banks is to make way for a commercial ecosystem to be possible and in fact encouraged. The commercial players themselves, banks, telcos, various joint ventures, startups, this is very important. They are very important, and they are crowding in from many angles. It is important to channel all this very important energy into a kinetic impact on the ground. All of this to say, I'm very optimistic. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is very much looking forward to help and assist countries on the way to financial inclusion. I thank you for listening to me, and I hope to meet you in person soon. Thank you very much.